In this video, we are going to discuss the button used to automatically sort a single folder containing hundreds of photos taken over a span of time. This button will allow you to choose an amount of time between photos that you know occurred, at minimum, between the different projects. Then, the app uses the date and time stamp on the photos to sort them, and then separate them into different folders. Let's look at a real-life example of how this works. I'll open a folder that contains 7 photos. As I hover over the first 2 photos labeled A1 and A2, you can see that they were taken about a minute apart. As I hover over photo B, it shows us that although it was taken on the same day as the first 2 photos, it was taken about 10 hours later that day. Now, we go to photo C. We can see that it was taken 2 days later than photo B. As I highlight photo D1, D2, and D3, you can see that they were taken almost a year after photo C. However, photos D1, D2, and D3 were all taken just a few minutes from each other. So, what do we expect to happen? Photos 1 and 2 will be put into a folder by themselves since they were taken just a few minutes from each other, and we set the cutoff time at 60 minutes. So any photos taken within 60 minutes of each other will get put into the same folder. Photo B will have its own folder. Photo C will have its own folder, and photos D1, D2, and D3 will all be in the same folder together. Now let's run PicPal and see what it gives us. To begin, click on the button on the left middle of the screen entitled Separate Photos by Time and Date. Once you've clicked it, then it will show you a dialog box with a blank source folder and a blank destination folder. Let's click the source folder and locate our dated images. Here they are right here, dated photos. That's the folder, and I'm going to go ahead and select the folder and everything in it. Now let's set the destination folder name and location. I'm going to put it inside the source folder for the same images. That way it's easy to locate the folder. And here are the dated photos folder. In this dialog box, I typically choose copy so that I'm not playing around with the original photos. Now, if you're pointing to an SD card, then move might be a good option. This is the single time that you will see PicPal potentially make a change to an original file, and that's when it cuts the files from the SD card and pastes them into the project folder. Personally, I like to copy them over and then verify everything made it, and then delete the images off of my SD card. The last thing that I want to mention about this portion of PicPal is that when you process the images, the EXIF data is completely erased from all images that were processed. Don't worry, not your original images. And what this means is that all of the identifying data in the properties of each photo will be erased. This includes the date the photo was taken, the kind of camera used, etc. Most people love this, and it is the reason that I added it. The EXIF data still remains in your original photos, though, in case you need to refer to it. For obvious reasons, if you want to use the app to separate your photos into folders by date and time, then you would want to do that before you process them inside of PicPal, since it removes the date and time. As for the time interval, this will be up to you. If you are taking photos of homes right next door to each other, then the time interval should be pretty short. If at the first house you know that you never went more than 5 minutes between taking photos, then set it for 6 minutes. For those of you who leave your photos on your device for weeks at a time, you will very much appreciate this function of the app. It might not sound like a big time saver with only 2 or 3 homes, but people frequently photograph 20 homes on one SD card, and having to try and separate those into different folders later can take hours. That is why I created this function. Now that we have the dialog completely filled out, we will press the Start button, and instantly it is finished and we can close the dialog box. We will now open the Dated Photos folder, where PicPal put the processed images. As you can see, it put them into 4 folders because the timer was set at 60 minutes, as we discussed earlier. Photos 1 and 2 will be put into the folder by themselves since they were taken just a few minutes from each other. And we set the cutoff time at 60 minutes. So any photos taken within 60 minutes of each other will get put into the same folder. Photo B will have its own folder. Photo C will have its own folder. And photos D1, D2, and D3 will all be in the same folder since they were taken at 10:54, 11:01, and 11:02 a.m. So these images were all taken within 60 minutes of each other, and so they were placed into the same folder. I hope that you found this portion of PicPal as useful as I have. Please continue to watch all of the PicPal training videos.